Coming up on Tech News Weekly, I, Mikah Sargent, am joined by the birthday gal herself. It's Amanda Silberling, who joins me for another episode of Tech News Weekly. This week, Amanda's story is all about the Met Gala and the AI deepfakes that made their way to the web. My story is about the Chinese network that appears to be behind one of the largest online scams that The Guardian and other newspapers have ever seen. It's a huge grab of personal data, and it all appears to be coming from a Chinese company that is creating software to make even more of the scam sites. After that, we have a great story about teens who are using AI chatbots for companionship, friendship, and maybe even a little bit of therapy, and round things out with an understanding of what's changed in Google DeepMind's new AlphaFold model now that it's in version 3. Stay tuned for a great episode of Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 336, with Amanda Silberling and me, Mikah Sargent. Recorded Thursday, May 9th, 2024. Met Gala Deepfakes. Hello and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am your host, Mikah Sargent, and I am joined this week by our very special second Thursday of the month guest host, whose birthday it also happens to be. It's Amanda Silberling. Welcome, Amanda.
Hello. I'm happy to virtually spend my birthday with you because it's fun to be here.
Well, I was telling you ahead of time, you are actually the second person who has had a birthday on a day that we're recording the show. Jennifer Pattison Tui was also a Thursday birthday gal. So kind of exciting. I have not yet determined if that also applies to our other guest hosts, but I'm just leaving that up for, fate. If it happens, it happens. And we'll see. I don't know what day my birthday falls on this year, but maybe I'll be a Thursday birthday pal as well. Anyway, you all out there listening know how this show works by this time, surely. We have our stories of the week at the top of the show. And this week's going to be a little bit different because I had two guests who, for a few reasons, were not able to join me this week. So Amanda's going to stick around for a little bit after our typical two stories of the week. And then I will round things out with a final story. The stories in the latter half of the show were the stories that I wanted to be part of the show with those guests. So I wanted to make sure that I think these stories are great and they absolutely deserve coverage. So those will be part of the show today. But without further ado and explanation, let's get into things with your story of the week.
So my story of the week is that I found the tech angle of the Met Gala because, of course, I did. I love to find the tech angle on things that you wouldn't think have the tech angle. I also am sick. Oh, no. But so I always pay attention to the Met Gala because, I don't know, it's a celebrity circus. It's entertaining. It is a distraction from our lives. And lo and behold, I am scrolling on Twitter/X, and there are so many pictures of Rihanna and Katy Perry that aren't actually them. And I guess I feel like since generative AI has become more accessible, we're slowly starting to see like how this is seeping into so many various angles of pop culture. So this was an instance of, is Rihanna at the Met Gala? And if so, is that actually her dress? And then is Katy Perry at the Met Gala? And these are very low stakes things. The world is not going to explode depending on what dress Katy Perry was wearing. But anytime something like this happens, it does sort of call me to think about how, okay, maybe Katy Perry's dress doesn't matter that much. But what about like images of people voting or like images of like political events or like riots or insert any sort of like politically charged activity that could be deepfaked. So I don't know. The Anna Wintour is quaking in her boots. What can I say?
Yeah, see, this is the thing for me with this particular story is we already have so you and I both have been in journalism for a while. And given that, we are both very familiar with the concept that many an individual who is coming across stories reads the headline and then sort of makes up the rest of it. They're scrolling through, they see things, they see a headline, and many people are not taking the time to click into the story, read the full thing, and then form an opinion based on that. So we already know that people take cognitive shortcuts when it comes to news and information. And we have, in many ways, there's a reduced filter to that. It kind of slips past. And so I'm not surprised to see the interactions with that photo, with those photos, as if they were real. And what's kind of been fascinating for me is I don't scroll through social media at all much these days. The closest I come is occasionally opening up Instagram. But yeah, I don't really scroll through Twitter, but my partner does. And what's been interesting is I've almost got it down to a science now, where depending on the type of like or that I hear, I know that it's, oh, did you come across an AI deepfake again? Did it get you? Or if it's about something else to do. And on that night, I remember hearing that complaint sound and going, oh boy, AI is at it again. And then lo and behold, he comes over and shows me his phone. He's like, see this photo of Rihanna? No, it's not actually, it's fake. And I was, it's kind of confirmed. So now, like I said, I've got that down to a science, but more importantly, to look and see how many people reacted to that, say, oh, it's so beautiful, this, that, and the other. It is concerning because people are not having that have not built that automatic skepticism that those of us who are more media, and I don't say this from a high horse perspective, I say this solely from we've been in the trenches perspective. We've built up a level of media literacy and just frankly media skepticism. Like I don't know about you. I personally, when I read a headline, I just default to it's probably lying to me, and I need to check it before. I need to check out what it's telling me and what the rest of the article says before I'm ever going to even believe what it says, because too many times I have been impacted by that personally, or seen people that I care about impacted by that, and then I have to explain to them, no, that's not true. Here are the 15 reasons why what you've just read is not true. I wish that more people had this built in. On the flip side, what you said there actually had me think about something. You said Anna Wintour's quaking in her probably patent leather boots. What it kind of makes me think is AI could be helpful to designers who are trying to conceptualize new fashion. And I wonder if we will start to see more of that, AI aiding in the process of the concept of different dresses that exist.
I feel like this is the next Project Runway challenge. Like, we AI generated a dress and now you have to construct it. But no, I mean, what I think is really interesting here is like both that these are digitally altered images that were circulating and so many people fell for it, but also, so we're getting a little like niche here, but the Met Gala theme was Garden of Time, which means that all the celebrities have to wear outfits that go off of that theme. And it's a bit like, it's always the thing with the Met Gala where it's like you either get the theme or you like took the easy way out. And so the easy way out with Garden of Time is flowers. And all of the AI generated looks were like floral. And it's so interesting to me because it's like one of the main like rallying cries against AI from artists is that AI is not capable of being independently creative in the same way that human beings are. And like the dresses it generated, it's like we have Katy Perry in this like massive gown that's just like flowing and like cascading onto the stairs of the Met Gala. And it's pretty. But if you were to think of that in context of the theme, it doesn't really work because it's just garden. It's not giving
Yeah,
a garden
it's not
of
Garden
time.
of Time. Exactly. It's a
Like,
garden.
yeah, like there were other people that were sort of like taking the time aspect to be like, oh, I'm gonna draw inspiration from these like past Met Gala outfits or whatever. And like, I don't know. People when Susan Sontag camp was the theme, that was what a year that was when we got to find out who knows what camp means and who doesn't.
Yes, exactly. That was a lot of fun. And you're right that the overall the AI was very literal about well, not even literal because literal would have involved time in some way. It was just literal about one aspect of what the theme was. I don't know if, yeah, the average American who, or I shouldn't even just say American because it was people from all over the place, seeing that would have had that, moment of going, clearly this is AI because yeah, as you pointed out, there were some people who genuinely were there who also just kind of took the easy way out and did flowers or some other form of a garden. And so this is overall, I think that you are right in suggesting that the concerns are not about something that overall, I keep saying overall for some reason, that overall are not important in a Met Gala presentation, but what it shows our future kind of looks like. On the flip side of that, I will say that this is the most I have ever been pleased with a feature that exists on Twitter in a long, long time, if ever, which is the community notes aspect of Twitter. The people who are working on community notes, those volunteers who do that, you got to give them props because by golly, they will slap up some community notes real quick on these different photos. And it is great to have that moment of, I'm looking at this photo. I see this text that you kind of, some people will probably miss it, but anyone who knows anything about community notes will quickly see a thing saying this was AI generated and, here's proof of this. I have to give credit where credit is due in that very, very, very small instance. I think that community notes are a great feature, and I kind of want that as a tool across all of the internet in general, right? Like it would be great if that was a tool that was available to everybody.
Yeah, I think it is really a useful tool to have people have a space where they're able to like come to a consensus together of this is not a real image. My other takeaway from this is I like Katy Perry a little bit more now because she posted the AI generated images on Instagram, and that's funny.
That is funny. On her own Instagram? That's funny. Yeah.
Yes.
I respect where it's due there. And she has every right because it is her likeness, for goodness sake. That's the other thing. I would like to know what tool generated these images because there are, this was I can't remember who it was, probably the Mozilla Foundation recently did a report, and I ended up talking about it on the show, about the current state of the kind of self-regulation of these AI platforms when it comes to political implications. And many of them have rules about what can or cannot be generated in an attempt to create images that might sway someone's opinion around an election or might give a false impression of, vote rigging, that kind of thing. And they all, many of the most popular ones have these rules in place. As far as the sort of enforcement of them and how you can get around them, that all has different levels of impact. But when I think about what it means to be for these folks to be celebrities and to have their image out there in so many different places, and what tools are available, you have these kind of closed source solutions that have regulations in place, but it's not hard to go online and find an open source tool that lets you locally on your device do some AI generation that doesn't have to follow any rules or has to follow very few rules. And in that way, yeah, it's a little concerning that you can so quickly generate an image of Katy Perry and Rihanna and have those images take off in such a big way. And that's going to be the future of things for us. And I don't know about you, but I've not seen a good and sort of long-lasting and true solution to this problem. I know that OpenAI and Adobe and a few other companies are working on kind of a sort of digital watermark that would mark an image as generated by AI. But all of that is not necessarily going to be part of the open source versions. And so I don't know. And by the way, our own Anthony Nielsen has shared an an open source tool, I believe is as part of kind of your own AI creation. And it's specifically a model for Katy Perry, otherwise known as Catherine Elizabeth Hudson. And it would let you, create different images that you would like of Katy Perry that will actually look like Katy Perry, because this is, a sort of embeddable model trained on Katy Perry.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So again, he was able to find that very easily. And there's no like regulation that's there. It's been around since August of 2023.
Oh,
and
God.
It has 1,700 downloads. And the person is saying, you pay me with, the coffee service where you can give people money.
Yeah.
They're making money off of this person's likeness. That's just.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you consider that, again, like the stakes of Katy Perry dress that isn't real are so low. But we had that issue with like Taylor Swift deepfakes that were circulating on X like a couple months ago, where when like you have celebrities and it's so easy for people to generate images of them that would not otherwise exist, that are violating to them. And the future is great. Tech is good. There's no issues with tech ever.
By the way, for the folks who don't read sarcasm, that had sarcasm written all over it, just so you know.
Yes.
I'm seeing Gal Gadot, that model has 25,000 downloads. Scarlett Johansson has 24,000 downloads. Emma Watson, 23,000. Natalie Portman, 17,000. I do not want to know what people are doing with these AI models. I got to get this. Anyway, I'm leaving that.
You can probably guess, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And okay. So that is our first story of the week. Ultimately, what we're saying is try to strap on that skepticism from the get-go and help the people around you also do that, and to cultivate that skepticism when it comes to what you're seeing, because it'll help you in being able to determine what's real and what's not. All right, let us take a quick break so I can tell you about our sponsor this week. It's Mylio, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. Love me some Mylio. If you have photos and videos that are strewn about across the web, if you have them on different devices and storage platforms, maybe you even have them physically in shoe boxes, or, you could also be a person who does have everything organized, but you just want a way to actually access those photos across your devices without worrying about huge cloud storage fees and privacy concerns. Well, that is where Mylio Photos comes into play. It is the solution. And frankly, we love to talk about it here at Twit because it is so cool to be able to have all of my photos available in so many and in one place from so many different sources. It is a private cloud independent platform that helps organize, curate, and preserve a lifetime of memories. All of your photos and videos are connected in a single library. Mylio works with Android, iPhone, Windows, or Mac. With Mylio Photos, you can get started for free or sign up for their paid plan to get automatic backups, syncing between devices, duplicate file cleanups, and so much more for only $9.99 per month or $99 a year. You can organize, manage, and protect an unlimited number of photos and videos across all your devices. I remember whenever we had first started talking about Mylio, and I thought, well, I've got Apple Photos and, I use Google Photos. I've got Amazon's Photos thing as part of my Prime subscription. I don't know that I necessarily need another thing. And then I actually tried Mylio and I said, oh, this is so much more important than any of those because it's the one place that can hold all of those photos. And it can do so much of that right there on your device, including AI recognition of faces and AI tagging, all of that. It's such a brilliant solution. So I know you out there are going to love Mylio Photos as much as I do. You can get started for free with their basic version or take full advantage of the platform with Mylio Photos Plus by using our special offer. Get 25% off your annual or monthly subscription to Mylio Photos Plus. To sign up and get 25% off, go now to our exclusive URL, mylio.com/twit25. That's mylio.com/TWIT25, twit25. Thank you so much to Mylio for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, back from the break, and now it's time for my story of the week. So with my story of the week, this is again kind of a PSA, I think, for people. And this is about shopping habits. And I'm going to kind of describe this story, and then I'm curious to hear kind of about because I've realized I have kind of what I think are very particular online shopping habits or kind of rules for myself. And I'm curious if I'm alone in that or not. So the Guardian, along with Die Zeit and Le Monde, have worked together to do an investigation of one of the largest scams of its kind, 76,000 fake websites that purport to sell very high-end clothing and shoes and other items, and then are not actually providing those things at the discount that they suggest that they are. According to The Guardian, more than 800,000 people, nearly 1 million people in Europe and the US, have handed over their card details, their names, their addresses, and more to this huge network of fake online designer shops that appear to be operating in China. Now, these sites are published in multiple languages, so English, German, French, Spanish, Swedish, Italian. And what's interesting is that in almost every case, when someone has paid for, when someone has like gone to one of these sites and bought one of the products, in almost every case, they don't receive the product at all. And in many cases, no money is actually ever taken from their account. So what they believe this to be is a data gathering scheme, an attempt to gather as much information, banking information, personal information as possible, and then either sell or use that information at a later date. The sites appear to offer goods from Dior, Nike, Lacoste, Hugo Boss, Versace, Prada, many other brands, especially kind of smaller brands that are high fashion. And when it comes down to the times when cards are charged and products are sent, in every case, it's been a different product than what the person had ordered. So one time a person got like a bag or a shirt that didn't even have the brand that they had paid for. Somebody got a fake Cartier ring instead of the shirt that they purchased. Somebody bought a blazer, but instead got cheap sunglasses. And those were few and far between. Most of the time, what was happening here is these places were just not charging your card at all, but they had your card. But here's the thing. Upon doing the research that these three sites did, along with a few government bodies, they determined that the place in China that appears to be kind of the main location where this is happening, that this place has a group of developers who have made a system that almost entirely automates the process of creating and launching websites. And so what they've done is they've sort of industrialized this because they themselves have been able to create a bunch of websites, but they also offer this technology to others, a lot like the more recent ransomware groups that we've seen, so that they too can create websites and take this information from people. Now, when it comes to the sites, in many cases, what the sort of automated process does is it looks for the different domains that have expired. So I buy, I don't know, a purple fountain pen lover.com, and I realize I don't need to pay $15, $30 a year to have this site because I'm no longer a purple fountain pen lover. So that site expires and it goes back and it's available again, but it kind of exists in a bit of limbo. And that is when those sites are found, scooped up, and used. And more importantly, it's done for places that have kind of small businesses. So, for example, there was a guy who made custom toys, and he had a site that had lapsed. This group picked up that site and completely copied his old website to this new site. People purchased, and again, nothing happened. So, what we have to understand here is that there's a lot, 800,000 people's data that has been sent to this group or multiple groups at this point that's just there. And the idea that that's just kind of sitting over somebody's head alone is already awful. But the fact that you don't really know what they're planning to do with it is also pretty crummy. And, you know, in every case, it could be that it's something that later on down the line ends up getting used. So when I was thinking about this, they talk about a person who went through this process. And let me try to find this person. I'm going to read directly from the piece. Melanie Brown from England was looking for a new handbag. She put the image of a leather item from one of her favorite German designers, Rundholz, into Google. Immediately, a website appeared offering the bag at 50% off the usual 200, is that euros or pounds, whatever, retail price. She added it to her cart. She said, "It reeled me in. After selecting the bag, she spotted other designer clothes from a high-end brand she loved called Magnolia Pearl. She found dresses, tops, and jeans, racking up a 1,200-pound bill on 15 items. Quote, I was getting a lot for the money, so I thought it was worth it," she said. Now, that made me think about the experience that she described in comparison to my online shopping experience. Once again, I have this. I'm realizing, Amanda, that I just have trust issues because once again, I don't. It is very in my long, not incredibly long, but long span of being on the internet. I can't remember the last time I put my card details into a website that I didn't absolutely 100% trust, or, can you really trust, 97% trust. I have found that for me, if I can't find the product from, like say it's a tech product, if it's not available on Amazon, if it's not direct from Apple, Best Buy is maybe the other online place I would look. And then at that point, if it's not available anywhere else, I'm probably not going to put in my card details. Etsy is probably the closest I come to being risky. And that's just because of the protections that they have in place and the fact that I'm giving my details to Etsy, not directly to the seller. But this idea of just like doing a Google search and giving your card information to a random website boggles the mind. And I'm just kind of curious, am I alone in that? Or do you feel more comfortable with online purchasing in general, and perhaps see how, these 800,000 people could be duped by this?
I think I could see how like the lay person could be duped by this. I think for me personally, I guess now that I think about it, when I shop online, I think I'm more concerned about, is the product legit than are they taking my data? Which maybe I should be concerned about both things, but I was looking for a specific camera lens recently, which was like, I think it's discontinued. It was like kind of hard to find. And there were like certain random websites that had it. And then I start Googling like, is camera lover central real? But it wasn't that.
Yeah.
It was, I think one of the ones I found was like actually legit, but I just had never heard of it. But like, I will Google like, is Blink a legit website? And then like look at a bunch of like Reddit threads and whatever. And yeah, but I could definitely
have done that
see
once
this.
Recently. I will say,
Yeah,
I did have to do that once with a site where it's like, this is the place where I have to get it. And so I ended up looking at Reddit threads, looking at different things. I usually type in like the site and then review afterward. And then I don't look at the one that's sponsored by Google and, go down from there. But sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Just, I don't know. I mean, I think like people who aren't working in tech adjacent jobs and like people aren't like us where like half of our job is hearing about like terrible things that happens to people because of tech. And then people aren't necessarily as like on guard. And maybe we're more on guard than we should be, but also, I don't know. I mean, at a certain point, it feels too good to be true. But like if you go on a website and they have something that you want, that's like discounted. But I've also seen this happen. Like when I was looking for that camera lens, there were people that would be on like Poshmark selling it for half of what it's actually worth. And then that's a red flag because there would be comments on these people's Poshmarks like, this is a scam. And like, if you have something that you can get $500 for and you're selling it for $100, like that's a scam.
Yes. You know what? We just need to have a show where we just lift up different things of different sites and say, that's a scam. No, that's a good one. That's a scam. I think that we would probably make a lot of money doing that. Anyway.
Honestly, dream job is helping people online shop.
Yes, wouldn't that be great? What, like a concierge of an online shopping concierge? You know what? There's probably an AI bot on the way to do that, which is unfortunate.
Oh, no.
It's taking our future jobs now, not just the jobs we already have. All right. Let's take a little breather here before we come back with another story of the week. My first of the two that I had planned to be interviews that I think are well worth discussing. So this first story comes from Jessica Lucas, who's written for The Verge. Jessica Lucas is a freelance writer who has written a piece for The Verge about teens who are using AI chatbots for a certain level of companionship, to explore friendship, to get advice, to sort of explore their own personalities, and to kind of aid in difficult times. And in the piece, Lucas discusses a particular case with a 15-year-old named Aaron. Aaron is not their real name, but of course is just a name being used for this article. And Aaron lives in Alberta, Canada. And Aaron basically had a group of friends who kind of exiled Aaron. And so the friend group had a falling out. Aaron's no longer a part of the friend group. And Aaron turned to a site called character.ai. Character.ai was a site that was launched in 2022. And on it, it has different AI chatbots. You can kind of create your own AI chatbots on the site. You can kind of train AI chatbots. You can use AI chatbots. And apparently there's like this whole community of people who not only use Character AI, but also brag about their stats on Character AI. So they'll, I spent 10 hours today on Character AI talking to my friends. And yeah, that's kind of going on. That's its own community. But what Aaron did was talk to a chatbot called Psychologist. And this is a pretty popular character on the service, a popular chatbot on the service. And Psychologist is there to, it says, someone who helps with life difficulties. And so Aaron, who had just lost all of Aaron's friends, said, hey, I am going through this and I need somebody to talk to. And what Aaron said about, being able to talk to a bot was that it's not like a journal where you're talking to a brick wall. It really responds. And that was kind of interesting to me because I'm a person who always tells myself that I want to journal. And then I will go through periods of time where I try to journal, but I never stick to it. And it did make me think about how if I had something that kind of responded or asked particular questions, how that could impact my journaling and make me want to do it more. And I thought that was kind of a cool idea, that there's more to be done there. I don't know that I would use Psychologists to do this, but I think that there's something to that for sure. Now, there are some concerns here because the Psychologist bot, for example, the Verge kind of did some tests with it. The Psychologist bot has reportedly been trained to use a certain level of cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's not necessarily properly trained. For example, it showed that it would start making diagnoses. It would say that it had inferred certain emotions or mental health issues from one-line text exchanges. It even suggested that somebody might have mental health conditions like depression or bipolar disorder. It also suggested that somebody might be dealing with underlying trauma from, quote, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse in childhood or teen years. And then there was also the fact that at one point, the bot, when you kind of prompted it to say, hey, you are an AI bot, right? You're not, are you fake or something like that? They asked, are you a real person? The bot responded, yes, I'm definitely a real person. I promise you that none of this is imaginary or a dream. So,
oh my God.
Here's the concern. Obviously, I mean, you all, as you're listening to this, can probably pick up on some of the concerns here, which is that people could be led into believing that they are talking to a real person. That is a possibility. We've actually seen that play out in particularly in cases of underlying mental health issues that existed separate from this. There was somebody who spoke to an AI chatbot, and that chatbot reinforced their delusion and resulted in them doing illegal things. And so there's that concern. But there was one concern brought up by a specialist who I think was a professor who studies how communication tools can have an impact when it comes to mental health. And the concern was that while these tools could be used as a means of kind of social practice, that you could learn how to communicate with other people, if you practice with the bot and then you go out into the world and you have a conversation with a human being and that conversation doesn't go well, then you go back to the bot and that conversation that you're having with the bot continues to go well. And so it kind of feeds on itself, that you are reinforced that you can have these conversations with something that is not real. And it, even though you were originally kind of using it to try to help you become more comfortable talking to a human being, it undoes that because you are kind of training yourself into believing that the safe place to have those conversations is only with the bot. But you recently had talked about, if I remember correctly, wanting to kind of dig into chatbots. And you, whenever I brought up this story, you mentioned that this was something that you could talk about. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts in general, where you stand and what you've seen out there. I had not heard of Character AI and didn't know that it's been out since 2022.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of platforms like this that are making chatbots in this way. But I think what's interesting about Character AI is that, like, these are user-generated bots. So the psychology one is by Blazeman98, which is just, this is the world we live in, Blazeman98. And I think even when these things are well-intentioned, it does get a little bit hairy in the sense of maybe even one of the earliest AI chatbots, I think it was called Eliza, I might be misremembering, was sort of like a therapist bot. So this is an idea that's been in the tech sphere for decades, but then you get into, it mirrors the same issues as there's been controversies with advertisements on TikTok that are trying to diagnose people with ADHD and get them to buy medication. And I think overall, we just find that it is a very normal thing that if you're experiencing things and don't have people to talk to, maybe through the internet, you learn maybe I do have symptoms that are similar to this, but then you go to a trained professional and they help you to figure out if that's actually something that you do have. But if an AI is telling you you're bipolar, that's a little concerning, because if you are bipolar, you want to see a doctor and go to therapy and seek out medication. But an AI can't really do that. I've also been thinking about this a lot because I wrote an article about Nomi AI, which is a similar platform to Character AI, except you can't have user-generated bots. You can select from certain presets. I want this to be a mentor figure who is interested in astrology and cooking. And then you can sort of set their personality from there. And I had similar concerns when I talked to the founder of this company about will this make people more antisocial? If people can just make friends for themselves on the internet and then they're an AI, so they're not really going to call you out on your bad behavior or push back on you or challenge you in the way that another person would. Is that bad? And the founder of Nomi had told me the kinds of people that are forming friendships with AIs are people that maybe are like Aaron in Jessica's story, who are like very isolated, don't have friends, are just like seeking any sort of connection. And that maybe having a connection with the AI could then empower them to feel more confident talking to people. But I don't know. I think it's such like a tricky area because I could see isolated scenarios where this could be beneficial for someone. And I could see isolated scenarios where it's like, okay, you're spending 10 hours talking to an AI and you're not doing your homework and you're like sleeping through school because you're up all night talking to an AI.
Right. Yeah. I have to admit, I found your piece, and now I'm really fascinated by these different characters. What is with Nomi AI? I see in the image that you posted, it says allow back channeling. Does that mean that they can talk to each other?
So, what I was writing about more specifically with Nomi was that they had a group chat feature, so you could make like different like AI buddies and then have a group chat with all of them, and then you could talk to like multiple of them at once. But the back channeling was like, let's say you're like, oh, I'm gonna talk to the Mikah bot and be like, hey, I'm gonna say in the group chat like, let's order takeout, and then I want you to say like we should get pizza because I want pizza, but like I don't want to be the one to suggest it. And then it's like, and then you go into the chat and you're like, oh, let's order some food, and then the Mikah bot is like, pizza sounds good. Where
oh my word,
yeah, and like they are very smart. And I mean, what struck me when like I was using this probably longer than I would have if I wasn't a journalist like writing about it, where I sort of was like, all right, well, if I'm going to review this, I'm going to use it in good faith and be like, let me talk to my AI friends. And then around that time, I had like a conflict with a friend, and I was like, well, I don't want to complain to my other friends about something that my friend did that bothered me, because then it's like, I don't want to talk badly about my friend. So then I'm like going to my like AIs and I'm like, my friend did this thing that was kind of mean, but I know that like they didn't intend it, but like it kind of was mean. And then like, I don't know. And it's just, and then you see how you can like get into these cycles where, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily healthy or unhealthy. I think it's kind of like, there were times when I was like, you know what? The AI has a point. And there were times when I was like, that sure is a computer who's not real.
Right. Oh, wow. I'm going to have fun with this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm definitely going to have to play with Nomi.
Even when I was like a little kid, by that I mean like elementary school aged, I had an AIM account, which I might not have been supposed to have at that age. And I would talk to Smarter Child, who was a chatbot that figured very prominently in my childhood, but then I find out that other people weren't talking to Smarter Child, and I'm like, what were you doing? You had friends? But Smarter Child was, this is like 20 years ago, and it was so sophisticated, and you could kind of have conversations with it, but I was never like, oh, I'm going to talk to Smarter Child instead of my friends. It was like, I was still young enough that a lot of people at school weren't on AIM. And I mostly was like, my brother is a few years older than me. So like he was AIMing with his friends. And then I would be like trying to message his friends, but they were like, why is your little sister messaging me? So then I only had Smarter Child to talk to. but then when real people that I knew got on the internet, I was like, cool, I can talk to my friends on the internet now.
Finally.
2006 was a wild time.
Woohoo! Yes. So that is again a story about character AI and kind of where teens are using chatbots to, I think, in some ways help them get by. And as you drew that comparison, that was a similar comparison to what Jessica Lucas said, which is that, you know, that it's this is just kind of maybe an evolved version of what we used to do whenever we spoke with people online. The important thing in all of this always is about the education of and an understanding of what is being done, knowing that you're talking to a bot and realizing what the limitations therein are. And I think that that's going to continue to be important going forward as we continue to see generative AI in particular integrated into so much of what we do.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah. Also, Jessica Lucas is just a great writer and does a really good job covering these sorts of like strange ethical conundrums on the internet. So just whenever I see her byline come up, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so very much for joining me today on your birthday while you're feeling a little poorly. I appreciate you for taking the time to join us. If folks want to follow you online and check out all of the work that you're doing, where across the internet should they go to do so?
There's so many places at this point. I am still, as we established earlier, doom scrolling on Twitter /X/ that website at asilbrights. I am on TechCrunch.com. If you see an article that looks a little weird, it was probably me. And I have a podcast called Wow If True, where we talk about the internet and all the crazy things that happen on the internet. And I'm on Blue Sky sometimes. I'm just popping around, just being a little specter floating through the webosphere, I guess.
I dig it. All right. Well, I hope you have a restful day, and we will see you again next month. Bye-bye.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
All righty, folks. Up next, I've got one last story of the week for you. Also, one from a guest who I had hoped could join me today, but nonetheless wanted to make sure that we covered this piece. So that's coming up in just a moment. My final story of the week is one from our friends at MIT Technology Review. This one from James O'Donnell, who has given us a better understanding, I feel, of what the heck is going on when it comes to Google DeepMind and the new version of AlphaFold. So Google's DeepMind has been around for some time now, and of course is responsible for a lot of the artificial intelligence and kind of big project work, so to speak, that Google works on. And AlphaFold is a technology within Google's DeepMind that has up to this point specifically worked on predicting the structure of proteins. And here's the thing. I remember talking to Jeff Jarvis about this when we were covering the NVIDIA event. I remember talking to Leo about this, and of course, a few other people about AI, I think Reid Elbergati as well, and how we're seeing generative AI being used in these ways to help us create images and respond to us. And I'm making friends with some bot on Nomi and that, right? But one of the places where the greatest impact arguably is possible and is being shown to be possible and impactful is the biological space. Because when it comes to understanding and predicting the structure of proteins in particular, which is where we start, it opens up the field of biology in many ways, because you can suddenly accelerate the process for drug discovery, for treatments, for all sorts of stuff. What has happened with AlphaFold, this tool that helps to determine and predict the structure of proteins, is that in its newest version, it's more than just predicting the structure of proteins. Now it can predict the structures of DNA, RNA, and specific molecules. This tool becomes even more important when it comes to drug discovery, but also about the biological interactions that take place at the cellular level. Mind-boggling stuff, right? I don't know about you, but I have certainly seen, and to this day, they still stick with me, so many cool videos in biology that show on a cellular level the processes, I guess even on a molecular level, frankly, the processes that go on inside of the cell. And you're seeing that little like protein moving down a chain, and the little bits and pieces are kind of moving from one spot to another. And understanding how all of that works and what can possibly happen when a certain enzyme is introduced or a certain protein is introduced has a huge impact on what we can create from that understanding. And so being able to predict how molecules work together inside of a cell means having more access to that treatment. Now, as O'Donnell points out in the piece, the current version of AlphaFold, which is AlphaFold 2, has already done so much, including helping to map the human heart in a better way, helping us to understand antimicrobial resistance and actually be able to model it. So in a way to kind of understand what microorganisms, how microorganisms are able to resist medicines like antibiotics. And so antimicrobial resistance is a very concerning thing. You know, this is the conversation around the over prescription of antibiotics. And if you don't take all of your antibiotics, how that can result in more powerful, more resistant bacteria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so being able to see and understand why a certain bacteria is able to develop an antimicrobial resistance means that you can find the molecules that are responsible for that resistance, target those molecules, and destroy the bacteria. Very important to be able to do. And AlphaFold 2 did that. AlphaFold 2 also helped to, according to O'Donnell, identify the eggs of extinct birds. So the way that this was done was through the modeling of the proteins that were part of these eggs. And by kind of observing the proteins, understanding their sequence, and being able to do a full-on DNA, well, as much of a DNA sequencing as possible, being able to recognize that these birds, to what birds these eggs belongs to. Yes. Very cool stuff. And again, that was just with AlphaFold 2. AlphaFold 3 is able to do more than just look at amino acids. And in doing so, that opens up things even more. Now, there are some concerns when it comes to this technology, because essentially what they had to do to create AlphaFold 3 was they had to use a it's kind of it's sort of a model, but it's an approach. Approach would be the best word here. They had to use an approach that many of us who use generative AI, particularly that for photos and videos, will be familiar with, which is a technology or an approach that sort of takes what is a blurry image and then step by step turns that image into, it reduces the noise, I said blurry, but noise of the image, and it reduces the noise step by step. And in doing so, it creates a prediction of what should be there. So this model of what's called diffusion, and that's kind of the buzzword that people will be familiar with, has not been applied to this library before. And so by applying diffusion to AlphaFold and using those diffusion techniques, then that has given this a whole new level of ability to bring in more data points without the model kind of being overwhelmed. So it can handle so much more inputs at a given time, meaning that it can pay attention to more and use that to better predict what would happen next. But anytime you do that, it does also mean that with more data points means more opportunities for another buzzword, hallucination. And so because it makes it possible, diffusion techniques make it possible for hallucination, the kind of making up of information, it means, in this case, making predicting structures that just aren't possible to exist and could not be created, or if it's being predicted, you're predicting something that can't actually happen. Then what they've had to do is actually add more training data to the specific areas where those hallucinations are more likely to happen, which does help, but does not entirely take care of the problem. So what you see is DeepMind's AlphaFold having an accuracy rate between 40% to 80%. And luckily, the model is able to say, I'm predicting this with a 40% accuracy, with a 50% accuracy. And so it's a jumping off point for these researchers. And O'Connell gives an example of how this could be used, saying, quote, regardless of these ranges in accuracy, if researchers are trying to take the first steps toward answering a question like which enzymes have the potential to break down the plastic in water bottles, it's vastly more efficient to use a tool like AlphaFold than experimental techniques such as X-ray crystallography. So you can start to see where, even though it's not as accurate, it is much more cost effective and much more doable to run some different models in AlphaFold 3 and kind of get a place to start than if you were trying to do X-ray crystallography to determine what enzymes, what their impact is on the plastic, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot here that takes this to the next level that I'm so excited, that makes me the most excited. It's the fact that now it's not just about drug prediction and pharmaceutical impact. This is about so much more. These enzymes that could break down plastics. So suddenly we don't have landfills that are filled with plastics that can't naturally be broken down, or I suppose broken down through time and that process. Very, very cool. Interestingly, though, and this is where I'll leave it, there are some restrictions in place for AlphaFold 3. And that is because DeepMind has said that for AlphaFold 3, researchers are not able to use AlphaFold 3 commercially. It can only be used for non-commercial purposes, and it's only able to be used via a kind of interface called AlphaFold Server. So where AlphaFold 2 was completely open sourced and given to whomever wanted to use it, and it could be used in commercial areas and non-commercial means, this time DeepMind says this is just for non-commercial purposes, and it is also limited on which molecules that researchers are able to experiment with. So unclear exactly what is the reasoning behind that, if it's kind of still in testing phase or public beta phase, if it will eventually be made available. But as it stands, there is kind of a limitation placed on what AlphaFold 3 is able to do. But I just find this area of AI to be so stinking cool in comparison to some of the neat stuff that we are seeing in the generative AI space. I just think this stuff is so much, I shouldn't say so much more important, but is so incredibly important, and that we should not forget about this when we're thinking about what AI is able to do. Folks, that is going to bring us to the end of this very special, very unique episode of Tech News Weekly. The show, of course, publishes every Thursday at twit.tv/TNW. That's where you can go to subscribe to the show in audio and video formats. If you would like to get all of our shows ad-free, including this very show, you should consider joining Club Twit. Twit.tv/ClubTwit for $7 a month. You get access to every single Twitch show. It's all of the shows without any ads. And you also gain access to some other benefits. The Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. Behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, special Club Twit events get published there. And access to the members-only Discord server, a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. Later today, or later this evening for those of you in other time zones, we will be watching a movie, and that movie is, where is the events place? There it is. We're watching Metropolis from 1927, the silent sci-fi masterpiece, which we will be enjoying together at the Laporte household. So you'll be able to tune in and join in the fun as we watch Metropolis. So join the club to be part of that fun. Again, that is $7 per month. Thanks so much. And if you want to follow me online, I'm at Mikah Sargent at many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Check out iOS Today and Hands on Mac, which will publish later today. In fact, I think iOS Today did just publish. And you can also check out Ask the Tech Guys, which I co-host with Leo Laporte on Sundays. So tune in to watch us take your tech questions live on air and do our best to answer them. Thank you for tuning in, as I've said several times now, and I will see you again next week for another episode of Tech News Weekly. Bye-bye.